Today, you're going to learn the best ChatGPT SEO content strategies to rank number one with AI in this interview with Kevin Mung and I. Plus, you're going to get 7 free SOPs and prompts to rank number one based on this masterclass, which you can get access to right here. Now, Kevin's one of the best SEO copywriters in the world. So if you want an actionable, easy way to quickly edit your ChatGPT content, rank your website number one, and grow your business with SEO, make sure you keep watching. So, step by step, what's the best way to use ChatGPT for SEO content?
So first of all, super obvious, but you've got to put in the effort and you have to realize that ChatGPT is not a writer. It's not something you just say, here's some information, write me an article. I think a lot of people know that instinctually, but they don't actually take the time to put in the effort. No AI content writer actually writes anything, if that makes sense. It doesn't come up with the writing. It just takes whatever you tell it, and then it sees what else is out there via the language model, NLP. I don't know really the inner workings, but it uses existing information to create something for you based on your instructions, right? So in that way, it's really like a scribe. So imagine you have a content writer sitting next to you that's can just write a million words a second and is free basically. But it's not actually thinking for itself. You have to tell it exactly what to write. So think of it like a scribe. So long story short, the best way to use ChatGPT is to step by step tell it exactly what you want to see and let it fill in the blanks. And a good example would be, say you just have top 5 SEO tools. You would say, okay, ChatGPT, write me an intro. In the intro, I want you to do this, this, and this. And I want you to not do this, this, and this. And it will say, oh, okay, boss, here you go. And then, okay, number 1, Surfer SEO. And then you tell again, ChatGPT, tell it exactly what to do. I want you to start by saying this, and then I want you to compare Surfer to another tool. And then I want you to explain 3 benefits of it in bullet points. Then I want you to give an example of using it. And then boom, fill it out. The more clear instructions you give to ChatGPT, the better the end product is going to be. What I see a lot of people do, a lot of different niches, but we can stick with the SEO tools. They'll say, write me a review of Surfer SEO and be sure to explain the benefits and use these keywords. But that's too general. If you give ChatGPT too much space to be creative, it's going to be a disaster because ChatGPT is just a stupid robot. And I know I sound like an old dinosaur when I say that, but that's the truth. You can't give it too much space to do its own thing, or else it's going to hallucinate. It's going to ramble. It's going to just write a bunch of fluff, all that stuff. So explain exactly what you want it to do in each section and also explain what you don't want it to do. I find that even when I give it editorial guidelines, it tends to forget those. There's a limited working memory with it. And I really don't care what OpenAI says about it or what other people say. I've seen it firsthand over and over and over again that I give editorial guidelines and 1,000 words in or whatever, it starts to break down. It starts to repeat itself if you don't nip it in the bud. So going back to what I was saying before about giving step-by-step instructions, if ChatGPT gives you something and you don't tell it exactly like, I don't like this, it's going to assume you like it, right? So it's going to keep repeating that. And a good example would be that it could be very mechanical. The first thing about Surfer SEO that you'll like is that it instantly creates you an SEO article in one click. However, moreover, it's very, very mechanical like that. It doesn't transition very naturally. And if you don't stop it from doing that, it's just going to assume you like that and it's going to do it over and over and over again. Editing is going to be a headache. The final product is going to be very mechanical. As an aside to that, I think that AI detectors, some of them are pretty solid. I use with the software that I've created with my business partners, Ben and Jan, we do AI detection. And I've noticed that it's something comes back as like 100% AI or 90% AI. The first thing I notice is it's very mechanical, poor transitions, very, very fluffy and things like that. So AI detectors are getting good at noticing that and readers don't like it. So that's just one thing you need to nip in the bud there. I noticed that I'm rambling quite a bit, but this is a complicated topic. So long story short, explain exactly what you want, explain exactly what you don't want. And if it starts to do something you don't like, just nip it in the bud right there. Tell it you don't like this. Please stop doing it or else it's going to repeat it over and over again.
I know a lot of content agencies that took a massive hit this year because of
Yeah.
ChatGPT and because So many people have transitioned so quickly into using ChatGPT. How do you feel it compares versus a human writer? Would you rather hire an average human writer from Upwork, say for 10, 15, $20, or would you prefer to use ChatGPT and just give it the right prompts and checklists?
I think the right answer to that is like 75% ChatGPT. If you're talking about just basic, normal SEO content, the kind of content that you're not really going to want to invest a lot of money in, if it's not going to be, say, a pillar post, or it's not going to be a super important, let's say, roundup review that, like a big important money page. If it's just for your normal articles, the best route is to have fewer humans, rely more on ChatGPT, instill those checklists, instill good habits, train your writing team to use it, because ChatGPT has infinite output pretty much. It never gets tired. It never calls out. It never goes to the bar on a Friday and doesn't show up until the next Wednesday, like most content writers do. So I think you're better off having fewer writers and incorporating ChatGPT into that and turning your writers more into like ChatGPT editors, whatever you'd like to call it, content editors. It's all the same to me. I think that SEOs kind of don't understand the difference between a AI content editor and a content writer. To me, it's the same skill set. Maybe there is a little bit difference here and there, but if you don't know how to write good content, you're not going to be able to use AI properly anyway. So you need a good content writer in there to use it, to edit it, to prompt it. Back to your question, the average writer versus ChatGPT, I think ChatGPT is better if you know how to use it properly, because the number one skill for a human content writer is to be able to write concisely, very to the point, convey your message in as few words as possible. And I think most humans are pretty bad at that. When I'm hiring writers, when I'm doing recruiting runs for SEO agencies or people, freelancers, whatever, I filter out probably 78 to 80% of writers just because they write so wordy and fluffy and they don't know how to condense their thoughts into something digestible. That's very difficult. And that's actually what I think ChatGPT is the best at. If you give it the right guidelines, I think ChatGPT does that very well. It's everything else that ChatGPT sucks at, but the writing very concisely, it does very well. And ChatGPT is not concerned with fluffing up the word count to get more money, which a lot of human beings are. So yeah, an average human writer versus ChatGPT, I think GPT is better. A good human content writer is still way, way, way far ahead of AI, simply because AI can't think for itself. It doesn't have a personal opinion. It can't use a product and give experience. It can make up experience, but it can't give you a firsthand experience. It can't call back to previous experiences to put things into context for you. It can't write sales copy very well. So a good human writer is going to be much better than AI, but there are very few good human writers, and the good ones are expensive. They usually are kind of crazy like me. And most of your articles as like your basic SEO niche site don't need to be the greatest thing of all time, right? They just need to be good enough to rank, good enough not to have a high bounce rate, good enough to support the other articles on the website. So, maybe you don't need the greatest article of all time and it's not worth the investment. It depends on site to site. So yeah, long-winded, average human writer versus ChatGPT. I do think ChatGPT is better.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the game has changed to the point where you don't need human writers on your team, but you do need great editors and great systems around that to turn and transform that AI content into something that not just ranks, but also gives you good user experience and also converts into traffic and sales as well. We'll come
Yeah.
on to a checklist in a minute for editing the content, because I think you'd have some great ideas on that. But what lens would you view and edit the content specifically? Like, are you optimizing for accuracy, for conversions, for fact checking? What's your philosophy there?
I don't do a lot of the fact checking and accuracy things. And I don't really even write for clients anymore. I'm really just doing the consulting, training writers, hiring. I have my main client. I work for Blog Growth Engine. I run their blog. I train their students, so I do quite a bit of that. That's really what I do these days. Mm. When I'm editing content, I'm editing it to improve the quality. I'm doing it to improve the tone, the readability, the sales aspect of it, for sales copywriting, if it's a product review, which I really don't recommend ChatGPT for, more looking to make it a good piece of content. I don't get too deep into the fact checking. That's something an editor can easily do a lot cheaper than I would. And to be honest with you, I don't really have the time for it. Or I I don't care as much. Once the article is at a good level of quality, I'll just say, hey, this is good. Your writer or your editor has the skills now. I think they can make good stuff moving forward. Everything else just needs to be the mechanics of it. Like, your SOPs, checking things for, okay, check to make sure this is accurate. Check to make sure this isn't a hallucination. Make sure these 5 or 6 criteria are in place whenever you edit an article. I'll leave them with that. I don't really do like the nuts and bolts of it. Your original question was, what lens am I viewing it through when I personally go through articles? Okay, yeah. So again, long story short, I'm really just looking at it to make sure it's a quality piece of content from like a reader's perspective. I'm not looking so much at the accuracy or the facts so much. If something sounds really weird, then I will. If something sounds strange, I'll just, out of curiosity, look it up and think, oh, is that really true or not? But for the most part, no, I don't really care about the facts or if it were my own site, yeah, I would for sure. But if it's a client I'm working with, I just leave that with them.
That makes sense. And then when it
Yeah.
comes to actually editing the content, is there any sort of checklist you recommend for editing the content manually once it's been generated by ChatGPT?
Yeah, I think that it starts with the intro. I think you can have as many points on your checklist as you want. It depends on how much time you want to put into it, how good your writers are at creating the content, how much you care about the article itself. There's you probably a million things you could think of. Personally, sometimes when I'm editing an article, I think, Matt, damn, I could have just done this myself quicker than ChatGPT if it's a topic I'm knowledgeable on. But I think a good checklist would just be something like, okay, number one, does this article sound like a real human being would actually sound talking or writing about this topic? That's number one. You want to get the tone down. You want to make sure that the tone is engaging. I know you do a lot with like bird sites, right? I saw that on your YouTube channel.
I do.
So, if you're reading an article and it's about top 5 tips for training your parakeet, right? You want to sound like a real bird trainer. You want to sound like a real person talking about training birds. You don't want to sound like a corporation or, you know, basic AI content. If you've ever heard of parakeets, then you know that parakeets are a very fun and happy bird to have around your house. Here are 5 tips for training. It's just that doesn't sound like a real bird trainer to me. So you want to make sure that your tone is on point, that it at least sounds decently well, that it doesn't sound corporate or mechanical, it doesn't sound robotic. That would be number one. That's pretty easy to do just skimming. You can start with the intro, look at a few sections and just see, okay, does this sound like ChatGPT? Does this sound like a corporation? Does it sound like a school essay? Does it sound like everything else that's out there on the web? Because most SEO content is written that way. So that's actually probably the easiest way to say it now that I think about it. Look at your content and ask yourself, does this sound like every other article in the SEO world, or does it sound unique to my website? Because if you look at SEO content, most of it sounds more or less the same, doesn't it? I think that there's a certain tone of voice that most SEO sites use, the agencies use, writers use. I think it's the tone of voice that we all learn in school when we're writing school essays, because that's where most writers get their start writing and they're never trained any differently. So that's number one, is my tone correct? That's number one. Number two, take your content and put it into Hemingway or into Originality AI and check the reading level. If the reading level is higher than 8th grade, it's too much because it's going to have long words, long sentences. It's going to have these kind of try hard words like deft and cunning and all these adjectives and adverbs that are just, they're fine for novels. They're fine for school books that you read. It's not good for web content. I don't care which subject it is. Get it to an 8th grade reading level or below. So that would be number two. Number three is check the intro. Does the intro sound like an AI intro? Does it just introduce the topic? So if we're talking about parakeets again, top 5 tips for training your parakeet. Most intros are very factual and topical, right? So So it would be something like parakeets are a small breed of bird with yellow feathers. In this article, we're going to talk about training parakeets. So notice like AI tends to lead off with a very basic fact, a very topical kind of intro about parakeets in this sense. That's not the way you want to do it. The intro is for hooking the reader and getting them or convincing them to read the rest of the article. So you have to think of it almost like a headline on a sales page. The intro is where the reader makes the decision to stay or bounce. So make sure your intro quickly tells the reader why they should read the article, the benefit of reading the article, and previews what's to come in the rest of the article. That's the simplest. There's a million ways you can skin a cat with an intro, but that's the easiest way to do it. So what's inside the article, why they should read it, the benefit, and who you are. Why should we trust you? Are you an expert? Are you a trainer in parakeets, et cetera? So that's what I would do. So that would be number three. And number four, I would check the first line under every subheading because just like a school essay, AI and most human content writers tend to just write a topical sentence at the beginning of every subsection. So it could be, let's go back to top five SEO tools. Number one, Surfer SEO. A topical sentence would be something like, optimizing your keywords for SEO is really important. And that's why Surfer is so great. That's what most people do. Having an intro sentence like that is useless to readers. Anyone reading this article is going to know that it's not actually about Surfer. Now you're taking their attention away from what Surfer is and why it's great. And you're leading with this kind of boring, dull, topical, factual sentence when in reality you should be hooking the reader again, just kind of like an intro. So take away those topical sentences. You can even just get rid of them and get straight to the point, or you can add a sentence that kind of hooks the reader with an emotion like, our number one tool is Surfer. And with this one tool, you're going to be able to optimize all of your articles in 30 seconds or less. That's not true. I'm just making it up off the top of my head. But something that's going to hook the reader, a benefit, an emotion, power, a promise of something great happening. That's how you kind of keep their attention. So that would be number four on the list. Number five would be to make sure, actually, this probably should have been before that, but check the format because, ChatGPT especially tends to do like these very long sentences and these very long paragraphs. So I would go through and break those up, make sure paragraphs are not longer than three lines or 4 lines maximum. Keep sentences between 15 to 10 to 15 words maximum, maybe 20 maximum. If it's longer than that, break it up into two sentences. That's huge. And then go through each subsection and make sure that ChatGPT has at least explained when it makes a claim, it tends to be very surface level. Surfer SEO is great because it can help you optimize for all of your keywords. Moving on. Okay, well, how does it help optimize for keywords? Why is that so good? How is it better than the alternative, doing it manually? You need to go deeper and deeper and deeper for it to be good content that readers want to read. So I would check for these very surface level statements. And if it has these surface level statements that leave you kind of wondering, hey, what else? What's next? Tell me something more, add to it. You could do it manually, or you could take that sentence, toss it into ChatGPT and say, ChatGPT, expand on this benefit in 50 words, and it will do it. So that's a very basic checklist that I think would result in much better output for people. And I think that most people don't actually do it. They don't take the time. And actually, sometimes they don't even know they have a checklist, but it's more like a mechanical thing. Like, are the H2s there? Are the keywords there? Is the surfer score 75 or above? I think what's more important is this a quality article for readers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one of the best ways so to differentiate your content versus everyone else because most people are going to go down the path of
Exactly.
least resistance. And
Yep.
there's some shameful YouTubers out there who are doing 9,400 articles with one click in
I would
websites
never
and
go out to dinner with somebody like this in the Philippines. I would never go to dinner and talk to somebody like this about doing this exact thing you're talking about.
absolutely
Yeah.
outrageous. But
Yeah.
on a
Outrageous,
serious,
man.
but on a serious note, like, how do you feel about those one-click AI SEO tools? And I'm sure you've got some words of warning for each of them. So, what would you recommend, and how would you approach that?
That is a very complicated topic, my friend. I think they have their place. I really do. I think there's a huge place for them because, you know, just having the article itself as, forget about the quality of the content, just having it almost as like a commodity, filling that keyword, filling the topical relevance or whatever you want to call it, having more articles on your website, et cetera. That all has a lot of SEO value. And like I said before, I don't think every article on your website is super important. I think also some people, they like to start a site, get a ton of articles up, start generating the ad revenue. They don't care so much about the quality. After a few months or a year or whatever, the ad revenue adds up. Maybe they get some affiliate revenue and then they just flip the website. They don't care about building a brand. They don't care about anything else. Right. So there's still a lot of value to that, I think. I also think that, there's a lot of sites, a lot of niches where you don't need great, great content all the time. And with a little bit of editing here and there, I think you can take a one click article and you can make it into something decent. And, for example, Surfer or auto blogging, the product that it creates right away is average to be nice, to be gracious, but with some editing, it could be good and you've saved some time. Say you generate an article with auto blogging for $1 or whatever it costs, and it's decent, and then you spend 30 minutes editing it or an hour editing it and you publish it. Well, you just got yourself an article for $1 and an hour of your time or an hour of a VA's time. And now you've fulfilled that keyword requirement. Now you have more articles. So I think there's a ton of value in that. I think that people aren't using them the right way. They're using them as this kind of catch-all solution. And now they're like, oh, look, I can build a website. I have 1,000 articles and this is amazing. And then they get hit by a quality content update or a helpful content update or a spam update or whatever happens to happen. The bounce rate is super high. Nobody's clicking, nobody's staying on page. So there's a lot of pitfalls to that. And I think that if you think you can just click a button and have a good article that's worthy of publishing on your site, I don't think that's possible. Now, the flip side to that is if you don't really care and you just want to see if the articles rank and you want to get that ad revenue, you haven't really invested that much, have you? You've invested some time and maybe $100 here and there on articles or $200 or however many articles you've published. And you took a gamble. Maybe you do it with 10 sites and one or two of them work and you flip them and great. If the worst happens and your site gets nuked, who cares? You you took a gamble on it and it didn't work out. That's fine. I think if you're trying to build like a legit brand, a big site, or if you're in a competitive niche or something like that, then you need to have good, helpful, in-depth content. And I don't think AI is the best solution for that. But if you just want to make these smaller niche sites and you want to flip them or you want to see how long you can, you know, how far you can take it, why not? And once you start to get bigger and you have the revenue and you've got money, then why not invest in better content? But long story short, I think they have their place. I've said long story short a few times. I'm like AI now. I need to come up with a new transition. So all in all, or at the end of the day, they have their
This is
place
like when
if you're just trying to get ad revenue. Yeah, you should have told me in the beginning you didn't like long story short. That way I would have stopped. You need to give me some editorial guidelines.
Game of Thrones ChatGPT with that background.
Yeah, I know. I like Game of Thrones style one. I would be interested to hear about your side of the coin because obviously you're very successful with what you're doing, generating thousands of articles. And I'm just wondering, are you taking a similar approach where you're just thinking, hey, I'm not even really investing that much in this site. I'm just trying to get the ad revenue. I want to build it up and maybe flip it later. Is that kind of how you're looking at it? I guess you don't have to give all your secrets away, but you start a bunch of websites, you see if one or two of them stick and that's it. I'd be interested to hear your side of the coin.
Yeah, for me, I mean, these websites that we create, right, it's more like entertainment where we're trying to just see what happens and go
Uh,
someplace nobody else has ever been before. Because I think as an SEO, especially as an agency owner, you have to be way ahead of the curve versus
yeah.
everyone else. You have to be constantly learning, understanding the technology. There's an insane number of AI tools and workflows you could use with these websites that we set up where we might publish, I don't know, let's say recently we did 9,400 articles across 21 websites and it took about 15 days. That sounds like
Yeah.
magic, but it is all just an experiment and it's for fun. There's absolutely risks to it as well, which I always emphasize. And I think one of the things that props up a lot of these sites is not just the content that we're creating, but also the backlinks that we build to it, right? So
Mhm.
most people don't know how to build backlinks and they struggle with that. And the problem is if you're just creating tons of content, but you don't have any authority to that site, then when Google crawls it, it's just another piece of random content that 10,000 other people have generated using one-click AI
Yeah.
SEO tool, and there's no moat. So I think it
Mhm.
has to be balanced. But right now it works. The other thing I would
Yeah.
say is it might work right now. Will it work in 6 or 12 or 18 months? No one knows. But I think Google will get better at cutting those tactics out because they are a little bit grey
Mhm.
hat and they're a little dodgy. And if everyone did that, the internet would be a total mess.
I agree that I think what we're going to see is, as far as content goes, what we're going to see is kind of like the bar is going to be raised, like or the floor. I don't actually know how to put it properly into words. I can give you an example, but if everybody has access to one click AI tools, then the game has changed because now anyone can have the same article, the same number of articles, thousands of articles if they want, and they're not going to be any different from each other, right? And if 20 websites are competing and they all have the same content, they all have the same volume of content, the same more or less articles on their website, how is Google going to differentiate things? I guess links is number one, right? But I think also, on page metrics, things like bounce rate, things like time on page, things like clicks, social comments, shares, things like that, that's going to have to become big. And maybe, you know, more unique images, videos, whatever you could put into your articles to make them more unique. That's going to be the name of the game. Things are going to have to get more in depth. They're going to have to get more unique, have more human faces behind it. I guess that's the kind of idea of having like, trust writer profiles and things like that. So, the reason I say that is up until now, SEO has really been kind of like an information aggregation business where people are, SEOs are starting these sites, they're building backlinks, they're doing the keyword research. And then when it's time to create the content, they just kind of aggregate what's around the web. They put a little bit of content there. They optimize it for SEO. They put a nice little image and that's it. And they're ranking because, we're still really in the early days of search engines. They're not as advanced as we think they are. It's just kind of, you can have bad content and content that doesn't meet really even the user's intent or anything like that. But as long as you have the keywords and the authority and the links or whatever, it's going to rank. Google's not really, or at least up until now, hasn't been smart enough to really determine is this quality or not. What it cares about is authority, SEO optimization, backlinks. But that's going to change. And it already kind of has changed a little bit for sure. So what's the next level? If everybody has AI content tools, everyone knows how to use one-click AI tools, everyone has ChatGPT for $20 a month and it's getting better. Well, what's the next level to that now? Because now that's the playing field is leveled. Everybody in this business has $20 a month to spend on ChatGPT, right? So what's the next level? The next level is using AI to increase volume, decrease costs, but still using humans to make the content better, more informative, more readable, things like that. And also, yeah, better backlinks and maybe better use of other social media channels like YouTube to create like synergy between your site and things like that. So that's the name of the game now, is taking it to the next level.
Yeah, I think authority creates a massive moat. For example, the backlinks, the branding, even little things like having a knowledge panel for your authors on the website. These are little
Mhm.
signals that prove you're a real website and a real person. And I think it's the same with social media. Like there's going to be so many deep fakes and fake photos online in the future that
Oh yeah. Yep.
these social media channels are going to be implementing more of the blue ticks and the verification checks there. Particularly Meta have started looking at ways to detect AI images
Yeah.
automatically and a little disclaimer on the image. So I think the internet as a whole is just going to become better at creating a divide between what's real and what's fake, what's got authority and what's just been generated
Yeah.
without any authority at all.
Yeah, for sure. And just as a personal experience, the main client I have now, the they were producing tons of articles, AI content that wasn't even that bad. It was solid. The rankings tanked, and I don't want to share any like, you know, super direct data, but a lot of their rankings tanked and the content really wasn't that good. We were using kind of just these stock images. We didn't really have any depth to the articles at all. It was way too transactional or commercialized. And the site got hit, and we're in a very, very, very competitive niche, and it's a big, big site. And I don't know for sure, but I wonder if Google like pays more attention to these giant sites. I don't know if that's true or not. I just wonder if you're like more visible, is there more of a chance that Google has eyes on you? I don't know if that's true or not. That's just a thought I had in my head. But whatever happened, the site was hit really, really hard. And so we've gone back and we're rewriting everything, going more in depth, adding unique images, screenshots, Loom videos, testimonials from students within our ecosystem, more links to, studies, more links to, good resources, just making the content much, much, much better than it was before. And we're starting to see rankings come back. A few articles that were totally banished from the SERPs are already back on page one. It's taking us a long time to do it, but it's totally worth it. So there's definitely a very, very strong warning here that if you're a SEO site and you're big and successful and you're riding the AI content wave and you're making all these AI articles without caring about the quality, the day of reckoning is coming if it hasn't come yet. I really think that people are going to get hit pretty hard and if you don't start putting in the work to make your content better.
Yeah, I can see that definitely. Do you see a big use case for AI detection tools, or what's your take on that?
The tool that I've created with my business partners is a writer hiring tool. And most writers use AI when they apply to jobs. And so we're able to quickly detect who is just trying to spam us. We have an algorithm that we've created that kind of reviews the sample that they give to us and we evaluate it for different metrics. And that way we don't really waste any time filtering through writers. So if we get like 100 applicants, like 80 are out the window immediately. The tool just shows who used AI, who plagiarized something, who didn't put any effort to follow directions in the sample, that kind of thing. So it's not really an AI detection tool per se, but AI detection is part of it.
That's interesting. But it does make sense what you mentioned before, where if you plug in an article into an AI detection tool and it's 90 or 95% plagiarized, the content is probably going to be pretty bad.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And if it comes up as 100% AI, whether the human actually used AI or not, that's a pretty good metric to use to determine if the
Just,
article is quality or not. Like if something comes up that is 100% AI, then it's just shit content and the writer's not any good.
oh, you might as well shut down your website.
Yeah, yeah, you really should. And I see a lot of people complaining that, hey, that this AI detection isn't accurate. I wrote this myself, but it's coming out as like 80% AI. Well, it doesn't matter if a human writes it or a AI writes it. If it's bad, it's bad. And if it comes out as 80 to 100%, AI, it doesn't matter if you actually wrote it or not. It's a bad article. And you need to go back and stop repeating yourself so much, to transition naturally, to cut down the fluff, to add in more slang terms, to use personal pronouns more, anything to make it more human sounding. It doesn't matter who actually wrote it. If it's coming out high end AI, then it's bad
Makes total sense, man.
for
So
sure.
thanks so much for coming on. What's
Happy
the
to be
best
here.
way to contact you?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is just Kevin Meng, Meng on Facebook. I'm always on Facebook. I have a website for my course, Web Copy Masterclass. I do have a personal website that I just don't even really update. Facebook is so much better for me. You can check out Kevin Meng's SEO copywriting group. You can check out boomrabbit.com. Maybe you can put that in the notes. Yeah, I'll send you the link. That's for the software that we created. That's the best way to contact me for sure.
Awesome. Thanks very much, man. So, thank you so much for watching. If you want access to the ChatGPT SEO checklist plus the best prompts for editing your content based on Kevin Monk's advice, then you can get access to that free. You don't need to sign up for a free course or anything like that. You just click on the link, you get access straight away. Bing bang bosh. And if you do want to book in a free call about how to get more leads, traffic, and sales to your website, feel free to book that in. You'll get an SEO domination plan. We'll be able to answer any questions you have. You'll learn the best link building strategies for your website, and you'll discover how to quickly outrank your competitors with link building completely free. Feel free to book that in. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.